Hey guys, welcome back. Kamina the coach here. Today I'm going to talk about some things to do with education, and it doesn't really matter where you are an educator. It also doesn't matter if you are an educator, if you work with children or young people or any group of people that you are observing experiencing stress. And given that it is 2023, you probably know some people that are experiencing stress, or maybe just you. So, I'm Kamina the coach. For you, those of you who don't know me, I have been working and living abroad, mostly in education, for over a decade. I am now in my ninth country. I'm currently in Baghdad, Iraq. I'm feeling a little bit of it myself, so I probably should use some of the techniques myself. Um, Teaching during Ramadan is just, it's a lot. Or just being in the Middle East during Ramadan is a lot. So in March of 2020, I moved back to the United States and started working on early childhood trauma and adoption trauma. And I rededicated the channel. And now that I am back to working and living abroad, I have kind of combined both things. I have just as much information. I feel after over 10 years of working and living abroad, I definitely have enough hours of that to be expert and be able to share and lend information for that. And I think I worked overtime and still continue to work overtime on my trauma healing. It's a lifelong journey. It's something that I work at all the time. And if you have deep trauma, I think it is something that you have to work on for a lifetime. That there's never a point where you come to a point where you can say, I'm done. I'm healed. I don't have any more work to do. Because there's always more work to do. So like I said, today I'm going to talk about working with a group of people who might be stressed or overwhelmed, particularly students. These days, the internet, specifically social media, really run by AI, designed to get their attention, designed to make them feel like they are not enough, designed to make people feel like they are inept or inadequate, and it is doing its job. I don't use a lot of social media. I personally only have Facebook. Being that I am a coach and an artist and an author and an educator, people have asked me to start Instagram accounts and Twitter accounts. I do have them created. I just don't use them. They're not installed on my devices. I don't like things competing for my attention because I want to give my attention to the things that matter. And I don't want anything telling me what's important. If you're wondering what's up with the polarization of the world these days, we have social media to thank for that. And I don't want to get caught up in that struggle. Whenever I see myself getting sucked into Facebook, I always uninstall it and pull back. And I don't have my notifications enabled, so it's not jockeying for my attention. I just give a sigh of relief because it feels good. Not, I don't reach for my phone first thing in the morning. So without further ado, my students are super, super stressed. They have been taught to believe that their worth is tied to their grades. It is the same thing in China. Students are not allowed to study certain subjects unless they achieve a certain score on exam. They can't study to be a doctor here unless they get 100% on an exam. That's not real life, let's be honest. There are plenty of doctors, there are plenty of lawyers, there are plenty of engineers all over the world who didn't graduate at the top of their class and are perfectly sufficient, if not excelling at what they do. So they've taught these kids, these young adults, to believe that their worth is tied to their marks. And they are inordinately stressed about marks and about testing. and teaching right now during Ramadan. And for those of you who don't know, it is the holy month for Muslims. It is a month of fasting and reflection. The fasting is to remember how thankful you are, or how thankful you should be to have food, to honor God, and to remember those in need. So it is especially hard to have started a term just as Ramadan is starting. So my students are going to have to take 3 exams while they have been fasting. So they will not have had anything to eat. By the time they take their exam, they will not have had anything to eat for at least almost 12 hours. 10 to 12 hours. They will have not had anything to eat or drink in 10 to 12 hours. That's a long time. That's a long time. For those of you who know me personally, I am Muslim on paper, meaning I don't call myself Muslim because if I'm not practicing, I don't feel, and the Quran says I'm not a Muslim. I am not actively praying. I am not actively praying, so in the eyes of Islam, I'm not Muslim. But I did study Islam quite in depth. If you watch my Journey of Spirituality video, you know that I've studied quite a few religions, but I studied Islam for about 3 or 4 years and practiced devoutly. And I know that God said, don't make your religion hard. And I have recommended to my students that they eat on these days and make up these 3 days at the end of Ramadan, which is absolutely allowed. Most of them probably won't. Today is my 4th day into the term. We are 7 or 8 days into Ramadan, and I've already had 2 students get sick, 1 pass out, and the other one throwing up in the bathroom or dry heaving in the bathroom. So fasting mixed with the stress that their country and their culture has put on them has made it imperative that I teach de-stressing and mindfulness techniques. Not to mention, I'm in Iraq. So we're coming off 2 years of COVID. So these kids are anywhere from 17 to 21. So we're talking 2 years of COVID. How many years of the American occupation? United States invaded in like 2005, I guess. So we're talking 15 years of invasion. So pretty much have been living in a state of stress, even though they are privileged children. They come from mostly privileged families. It doesn't matter. They're still involved in this stress. COVID, 2 years of COVID, 20 years of American occupation, lots and lots and lots of pent-up stress, frustration, anger, sadness, fear. What do they do with that? So I am teaching them embodiment techniques. So I think I've talked enough. I will show you. It is really important that you're not out here, that you're inside of yourself, especially when you need to perform. And what causes stress is a lot of times we are thinking about what could possibly happen when we actually need to be inside of our bodies. So I always teach my students to sit forward with their feet firmly planted on the ground, and we usually start with rubbing our hands. Your hands, one of the most sensitive parts of the body, and proven to bring your heart rate down and calm your brain. If you notice when you're stressed, you likely may rub your hands on your pants, or people rub their hands together when they're stressed because there's calming in that. The second most calming place is then down your arms, this downward stroking motion. And that should feel really good if you're doing it now after rubbing your hands. I'm not sure why. The hands kind of prime you for it. And then once you go to your arms, it's like, it should feel that way. It feels that way for me. So now once we've calmed that brain down a little bit, then we want to make sure that both sides of the brain are stimulated and turned on. So we rub our hands, a lot of my students really like this. Depending on how hot it is or makeup, they may not be willing to do this. That should feel really good as well. We want to stimulate circulation of the blood to extremities. So I have them shake their hands. Really shake their hands, not really shake their hands. And unless they trust me, they really won't get into this because they feel shy or embarrassed. So I really have to gain their trust. So now we go back to rubbing our hands, and then we stomp our feet at the same time. Again, we're stimulating both sides of the brain. We're getting the blood flowing in all parts, all extremities. If you're teaching, likely been sitting for a while, so we want to get both parts of the brain working. We want to get blood flowing. It feels good to me because I was a little stressed before this, and this feels really good to me. After we've done this a couple of times, it should feel really good. Everything should feel really good. After I've gone through this routine with them a couple of times, I teach them about, I teach a listening and speaking class right now, but it doesn't really matter what you're teaching. We hold a lot of stress here. We hold a lot of stress in our tongues and things we don't think about. We hold a lot of stress in our shoulders. Your shoulders pin up to your ears. Ask them to bring their shoulders down away from their ears. Loosen that neck out. Ask them to turn away from their partner, turn away from a person next to them because they're probably going to spit when they do this. Ask them to stick their tongue out and breathe like a dragon, like you're breathing fire. So it looks like this. Stick that tongue out. And you're breathing from back here like you're breathing fire like a dragon. Should really relieve a lot of stress and tension here. Women especially are taught to grin and bear it. So when somebody asks if we're okay, we will like, yeah, I'm fine. So we hold a lot of stress and tension here. So putting that tongue out, opening that mouth a couple of times and doing that, should feel really good, and it should loosen up all these muscles here. I especially do this before speaking assessments. It really helps a lot. Once we've gone through all of the exercises, we'll probably do another shake, another iteration of rubbing our feet. Once we've gone through all of the exercises, I ask the students to put their hands on their heart. Why? Well, our heart has enough energy in it to run a whole city. It has more energy in it than your brain, actually. Your heart uses a lot of energy. And now the energy is really activated in your hands. Put those energy activated hands over your heart. I ask them to imagine that they're breathing in the light from the sun. I ask them to imagine that they're breathing it into their heart through their hands. So we're talking about taking all of that energy from the sun, gathering up the energy from the hands and breathing into the heart. You don't have to explain all that to them, but that's what we're doing. Using the energy from the sun, gathering the energy from the hands, taking it into the heart, magnifying that electricity, that energy in the heart. Then we're going to push it out into the body. And I ask them to make sure that they extend their stomachs when they breathe. Take all that air in, the light of the sun, all of that energy from the heart, and push it out into the body. We're going to hold 1, 2, 3. And while they're holding, they're imagining. You need to explain this to them first. So I usually just tell them, we're going to put our hands on our heart. Imagine that you're breathing the light of the sun in through your hands into your heart. Make sure to extend your tummy. All of that light from the sun is going to cook all that stress and negative energy. We're going to hold for 1, 2, 3, and then turn away from your partner and blow out all that negative stress and energy. So it would look something like this. So, okay guys, so we're going to, all right, one more time in our hands, put our hands on our heart. Now we're gonna breathe in the energy and the light from the sun. Breathe in. Tummy is poked out. Hold 1, 2, 3, and we're gonna blow out. And I usually have them do that 3 times. And usually by the end of that, their hands aren't shaking. You can see that their shoulders have come down away from their ears and they have visibly calmed down. So I start teaching that right from the very beginning of class. I only have my students for 7 weeks at this point. Today is the 4th day of class and I will introduce it today. It's going to be hard for them to buy into it because these are new students and they don't know me well enough to trust me yet. But by week 7, they will have, which is their exam week, they will have leaned into this and learned that it works. Hopefully that they will take it into their life outside of university and take it into their other classes to help them manage unmanageable or difficult, stressful situations, learn how to come back to their bodies, be more present, and thus be more productive. So I hope I've given you some helpful tools and tricks today. I haven't done this in a long time. Until next time, and as always, sending you a love, light, peace, and joy. Until next time, I am Kamina the Coach. I'm out.